Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a three. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk about how competitive PhD programs actually are. So if you don't know me, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out in graduate school and to become a professor that I wanted to create something that I could pay the favor forward. So I created this sort of sharing economy proofreading platform where you can get feedback on your work as long as you help out other people. And then I'm doing these YouTube videos to get the word out about it. So how competitive are PhD programs? Well, it really depends on the field and the school and the institution that you're looking at. So some PhD programs are not nearly as competitive as others, just like in your undergrad or just like in maybe it's your high school in your different cities that you're from. It really depends on a lot of different factors, but the best ones are the ones that are really, really competitive. And I'm going to sort of mention the sort of best ones based on how competitive they are and how difficult they are to get into. They can be so in a business school, for example, or in a law school or med school and stuff like that, that are a lot more geared towards sort of professionals, and the salaries are a little bit higher in those particular fields. And they are, unfortunately, and most countries around the world are, is more based on sort of capitalist kind of structures. So there is going to be large variances between in the education systems, particularly in the United States and Western Europe, lots of parts of Asia. Lots of different places are going to be geared towards more of these sort of capitalist systems. And so the education system is kind of built more like a meritocracy, I guess, or not really a meritocracy, but based on sort of how much money that they bring in and stuff. I know there's a whole complicated structure behind it if you want to get into all this kind of stuff. I don't want to. Anyways, so professional programs generally pay a little bit more. So those programs generally, because there's more people realizing that they pay more to get into those programs, and they're doing kind of similar things, that the supply of students wanting to go into those particular programs is much more higher than there are in terms of the number of slots that there are available for those particular programs. So the top programs around the world in the top sort of business schools around the world, and you know them, right? Everybody knows what those schools are. I'm not going to name them, but they're very well known in terms of the programs. You're looking at it's probably, so if you're at like a medium kind of good school, right, like a decent school to get into, it's probably a 1 in 20. And if you're going into the very top ones, you're probably looking at 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 200, that kind of stuff, right? So essentially that there's not a lot of slots for those PhD students. And so they only have a certain amount of resources. How universities work is that you're allotted some sort of resources to dedicate to PhD students. PhD students are really costly in the short term. And there's kind of this dynamic. It's called exploration exploitation. In the short term, you can, there's only a certain amount of resources available for that. But in the long term, which is kind of an exploration process, you do gain a lot of benefit from that. University gains like reputation and status, like things like that. So, but anyways, what ends up happening is in the short term, there tends to be not a lot of slots available or resources available. So there might be a couple of maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots available for any particular PhD program or discipline. And there might be 100, maybe it's 200, 300 students all vying for those potential candidates vying for those slots. And if that happens at the best schools, then it's going to be really hard to get into those particular programs, right? So you are... you really are just looking at how competitive, how many people are actually applying for those. And it depends on every year. And that's why it's kind of hard to sort of figure that out. There's not a hard firm number and all that kind of stuff. The PhD market is a marketplace. And so it depends on supply and demand every year, how many resources universities have, all that kind of stuff changes every single year, as well as PhD students. Sometimes the market is really hot and there's lots of PhD students vying for things, and sometimes it's not. And you just kind of have to look at that. And so if you're thinking about going into a competitive program, you could definitely get into a competitive program. That's absolutely viable. And what you have to think about, though, is it's a long run game. And what you're doing is training yourself to get to that long run game. And you might want to think about, maybe it's a year, 2, 3, 4 years in advance to get into those particular programs that are a little bit more competitive than others. And really what you're doing is you're training yourself to get to that point, right? So you have to set an objective, say in 5 years, I'm going to be in a PhD program that's really competitive, and it's going to be, it's in an Ivy League school, for example. And then what you do is you sort of do all the steps to get to that point. So if your GMAT or GRE scores are too low, whatever standardized test scores are too low, you go and take those again and improve those. If you are missing some courses, or your courses that you're taking, your GPA is not all that good, well, then go get a master's that can improve your GPA score, or that is a little bit more relevant. So for example, you did something in sociology, not picking on them. My undergrad was, half of it was in sociology. That's why I'm pointing it out. But if you want to, if you did an undergrad in sociology and you realize that I want to go to a business school, then go take some business school courses, go get an MBA or a master's in business or something like that. And then you can work up and get into the better programs that way. And it's a long run game. We all play this game, and it's all, literally everybody kind of plays this game over if you're going into the academic sort of area of things, that you're going into a more competitive marketplace, and you're kind of, if you don't know this, or academics is very much kind of, you sort of move around to different institutions and stuff like that. So even professors are playing this game. They want to go to the best business school in the world and teach at the best business school. Well, then they have to sort of think about these investments in the long run and do the exact same thing that you would have to do as a PhD candidate, or somebody that's interested in going into a PhD program around the world. So hopefully this makes sense. And, in terms of how competitive they are, it really depends on the program and depends on what you're looking into. Some different disciplines, not nearly as competitive. Other ones are extremely competitive. And the people that you're going to meet that are going into them, so a professional program, they're all probably going to be professionals. If you want to go and get a PhD in, maybe it's in a law school. I don't think that's really all that common, though. You can get a master's of law. But anyways, so if you want to go into a professional program, then they're probably all going to be professionals, right? And then on top of it, they're going to have 5 years of work experience, and they're going to have very high, test scores and all that kind of stuff. And those are the ones that get into the program. And so it's just really competitive depending on which kind of program that you're looking for, and other ones less so much, right? And it varies substantially in between the different PhD programs that you're looking at. All right. So if that answers your question and why it's competitive, and, are they actually competitive, please do give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right. Take care. Bye.